Okay, so we're diving into silver today.
Yeah,
A lot of you have been reaching out and asking about it.
a lot of interest.
A lot of interest in it lately, yeah.
Hmm?
Especially with kind of what it's been doing in the markets, right?
Exactly.
So we figured this is the perfect time
Yeah.
to really just dig deep into this.
Absolutely.
And figure out,
Unpack it.
unpack what's going on with silver, what's driving these price movements. We've got some really interesting data.
Yeah, some great research.
Yeah, so hopefully by the end of this,
You'll have a really solid understanding
you'll
of all the forces at play.
Yeah, you'll feel like you have a really solid understanding of
Yes.
what's happening with silver.
Absolutely.
So, so let's jump in.
Yeah, let's start with the basics.
Yeah. Okay.
Silver, it's often called the poor man's gold, right?
Right.
That's because it acts as a store of value, much like gold does. But it's also a crucial industrial metal. So you have this fascinating kind of dual nature.
Yeah, it's interesting because, we think of gold as being like purely,
Yeah, monetary asset.
monetary asset.
Yeah.
It's like this thing that doesn't have like a real world,
Right.
practical use really, other than like jewelry and stuff. But
Yeah.
silver, it's like, it's in our phones. It's in
Exactly. It's in electronics. It's in solar panels, even medical equipment.
Yeah.
So it has this real tangible use
Yeah.
that makes it so interesting.
Yeah, that's what makes it so compelling, I think. So you mentioned store of value.
Right.
So let's unpack that a bit.
Sure.
What does that mean, like in a practical sense, for someone who's,
So basically,
I'm at silver right now?
yeah, when people are worried about
Yeah.
traditional currencies losing their value,
Okay.
like we see with inflation, they turn to precious metals
Okay.
like silver
As a safe haven?
as a safe haven. Exactly.
Okay.
It's a way to kind of protect your wealth.
Like protect yourself from it.
Exactly, from that erosion of purchasing power.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And silver, it's always been seen as a hedge against that kind of uncertainty.
Okay, so it shares that safe haven characteristic with gold.
Exactly.
But what's really been driving silver's performance recently is something else, right?
It's the industrial demand.
Okay.
And this is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, think about solar panels.
Yeah.
A significant chunk of every solar panel relies on silver.
Cause of its conductive properties.
Exactly. Its conductivity is unmatched. And with solar energy growing so rapidly,
Yeah.
that demand's only going up
Exponentially.
exponentially. Yeah. And it's not just solar.
Right.
Electric vehicles, batteries, electronics, all of these rely on silver.
Yeah.
So this is a fundamental driver.
Right.
This isn't just like some temporary fad.
It's not like a fad or,
Yeah, it's
a
structural.
sentiment.
Exactly. It's a structural shift.
Yeah. And then we also have to remember that silver.
It's a trader's favorite.
Oh, yeah.
Historically, it's had these big price swings.
Yeah.
So it attracts folks looking for those quick opportunities.
Yeah, they're trying to ride the waves
Exactly.
a little bit.
Yeah, so that adds another layer of complexity to it.
So let's get to the heart of it then. What are the specific factors that are driving this recent price surge in silver?
Okay, so we're seeing a few things converging at once.
Okay.
Number one, we've got persistent inflation and just this general economic uncertainty.
In a lot of economies globally.
Yeah, across the board.
Yeah.
And when that happens,
Yeah.
when the cost of living keeps rising and the future looks shaky, people look for tangible assets
Okay.
like silver to protect their purchasing power.
Makes sense. It's like
It's a natural reaction.
it's like you said, it's like a safe haven. It's like a
Yes, seeking shelter in a storm.
seeking shelter in an economic storm.
Okay.
So what else is pushing prices up?
Well, it goes back to that industrial demand we talked about.
Okay.
The green energy boom is massive. Solar technology needs silver. Electric vehicles need silver.
Yeah.
And this demand is only going to accelerate.
It's a structural shift.
Exactly. It's not just a blip.
Right.
It's a fundamental shift.
So we've got investors seeking safety, and then we've got this genuine need for the physical metal.
Yeah. The demand is real.
Yeah.
And it's growing.
And what about supply? Is supply keeping up?
That's the big question.
Yeah.
And increasingly, it looks like it's not.
Okay.
Mining production is struggling
To keep pace.
to keep pace with this demand.
So basic economics tells us that that's going to put upward pressure on prices.
Absolutely, when demand outstrips, supply prices go up.
Okay, so we've got this kind of perfect storm brewing,
Yeah, you could say it.
You've got rising demand,
Yeah.
you've got potentially constrained supply.
Yeah.
what about like the bigger economic picture, like what central banks are doing?
Right, central banks play a huge role here,
Okay.
especially with interest rates and the money supply.
Okay.
So when interest rates are low,
Hmm.
it makes commodities like silver more attractive
Okay.
than things like bonds or cash.
Which are yielding very little in a low interest rate environment.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then there's quantitative easing,
Right.
where central banks inject money into the economy.
Increase the money supply.
Right, and that can also boost commodity prices
Okay.
because it makes tangible assets like silver relatively scarcer.
Interesting.
So it's all connected.
Yeah, it's like a web of
Yeah.
interconnected factors. You know, you've got the inflation fears, you've got the boom in green tech,
Yeah.
you've got potential supply bottlenecks, and you've even got central banks,
Really?
you know, kind of weighing in on this.
All playing a part.
Yeah. Are there any other global events or factors that are influencing silver prices?
Yeah, geopolitical tensions definitely play a role.
Okay.
When there's instability in the world, like conflicts, trade disputes, financial crises, investors often flock to safe haven assets.
Like silver
Like
price.
silver cap. Yeah, it's seen as a way to preserve capital
Okay.
when other markets seem risky.
Makes sense.
So that can definitely impact silver prices.
So it's almost like this flight to safety phenomenon.
Exactly.
Okay, so for those of you out there who are thinking about trading silver,
Yeah.
the research mentions a few ways to potentially, you know,
Capitalize on these price swings.
capitalize on these price swings. So even if you're not a day trader,
Mhm.
you know, understanding these mechanisms can be helpful.
Absolutely.
So can you give us a little rundown?
Sure. So for short-term trading,
Okay.
there's spot trading,
Which is
which is buying and selling silver immediately
at the current price.
at the current price, exactly.
Okay.
And then there are futures contracts,
Okay.
which are traded on exchanges like COMEX.
Right. And those allow you to speculate on future prices.
Exactly. You're betting on where the price will go.
Gotcha. And then for those who maybe don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of futures contracts,
Yeah.
there are ETFs,
All right. ETFs or exchange traded funds,
and those basically,
those track the price of silver.
yeah, you can buy shares of an ETF
Exactly.
that holds silver
Yeah. So it's a more accessible way to get exposure.
without having to store the physical silver yourself.
Exactly.
Okay, so then there's this thing called technical analysis,
Right?
which the research also mentions things like moving averages, RSI,
Yeah.
support and resistance levels.
Fibonacci's and retracements, all that
But
stuff.
why are those relevant for someone following the silver market?
Well, technical analysis is all about looking at past price patterns
Okay.
and using indicators to try and predict future price movements.
Okay.
So moving averages,
Yeah.
like the 50-day and the 200-day,
Yeah.
they smooth out the short-term noise
Okay.
and show you the underlying trend.
Okay.
Is it up? Is it down?
Right.
Then you've got the RSI.
Relative strength index.
Yeah, which measures momentum.
Okay.
It can tell you if silver is getting overbought,
Okay.
which could mean a correction is coming.
A price drop,
Yeah. Or oversold,
which could mean.
which could signal a buying opportunity.
Okay.
So traders use these tools to try and time the market.
Okay.
And of course, with the recent upward trend in silver,
Yeah.
traders are watching that RSI closely
To see if it's getting.
to see if it's getting overbought.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're also looking at support and resistance levels,
Which are.
price points where buying or selling pressure has been strong in the past,
Okay.
and Fibonacci retracements,
Which are.
mathematical ratios that can help identify potential price targets.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's all about trying to figure out where the price might go next.
So it's not all about these short-term gains, though, right?
No, not at all.
There's also the idea of long-term investment in silver.
Absolutely.
So for someone with a longer time horizon,
Yeah.
you know, how does silver fit into that?
Well, if you believe in the fundamentals we've been discussing,
The growing industrial demand.
yeah, the supply constraints.
Silver's role as a store of value.
Exactly. Then accumulating silver as part of a diversified portfolio could make sense.
Okay, so it's not about timing the market.
Right.
It's about,
It's about holding an asset
yeah,
for the long haul.
for potential appreciation over time.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's important to be realistic.
Of course.
The research does highlight some risks
Yeah.
involved in trading silver. So what are some of the downsides?
Well, one of the biggest is volatility.
Okay.
Silver is much more volatile than gold,
No.
meaning its price can swing up or down dramatically
Yeah.
and quickly.
Okay.
So while there's potential for big gains, there's also the risk of big losses.
So higher potential reward comes with higher risk.
Exactly. It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, like a roller coaster ride.
It is a bit like a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Buckle up.
Hold on tight.
Mhm.
What else should people be aware of?
Okay, so silver is a smaller market than gold,
Okay.
which means it can be more easily influenced by large players or speculators.
Okay.
So you could see price moves that aren't really driven by fundamentals.
So it might not always be about supply and demand.
Yeah, it could be more unpredictable,
So you need to be aware that the price action could be
more dramatic,
more dramatic
and
and
less predictable.
less predictable.
Exactly.
That-
And then there's the industrial demand angle.
Right.
If the global economy slows down,
Yeah.
demand for silver from manufacturers would likely drop.
Putting downward pressure on prices.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So silver's performance is tied to the health of the global economy.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's not immune to those broader forces.
And for those considering futures trading, the research mentions leverage.
Right.
What's the deal with that?
Well, leverage can magnify your profits,
Okay.
but it can also magnify your losses.
So it's risky.
You need to be very careful with leverage
Okay.
and have a solid risk management plan.
So to wrap this up for everyone,
Yeah.
what are the key takeaways from our deep dive into silver prices?
Okay, so the main point is that silver's upward momentum
Yeah.
seems to be driven by several powerful factors.
Okay.
Inflation worries, increasing industrial demand.
Especially in green technologies.
Right, and potential supply shortages.
So all of this suggests
That prices could continue to rise?
there are risks.
Absolutely.
Silver is volatile.
It can be very volatile.
So it's crucial to understand.
The risks and the different ways to engage with this market.
Right, because there are various ways to get involved.
Spot trading futures, ETFs.
Each with its own risk profile.
Exactly.
Okay, so a final thought for you to consider.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about all these dynamics, the inflation concerns, the growing industrial needs,
Right.
the supply picture, the potential for gains and losses.
Mm-hmm.
So taking all of that into account, what are your thoughts on where silver prices might go from here?
Yeah, it's a complex situation.
It is. There are a lot of factors at play,
There are.
but we hope that this deep dive has given you,
A solid understanding.
yeah, a foundation.
Yeah, a framework for thinking about it.
Yeah, for thinking about silver and maybe even doing some more research on your own.
Absolutely.
You know, maybe looking at specific industrial applications of silver or tracking macroeconomic indicators.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a fascinating market.
It is. It's constantly evolving.
And it's one that we'll definitely be keeping an eye on.
For sure.
So thanks for joining us on this deep dive into silver.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll catch you next time.
See you later.